think, is, and I actually got to the point that I didn't like being critiqued, because I felt that, especially if I wasn't done with the painting, I knew I wasn't done, and that would happen when I'd go to a plein air group, and then when they get together and they talk, like, you know, after an hour about how to fix your painting, and part of it, that sounds, maybe I'm being really arrogant. I probably am, but it would be interesting because, you know, 3 or 4 people make different comments, and they'd all be contradicting each other, and I'm trying to clarify in my own mind what I want and what I want to do. And I was finding myself more influenced by their thoughts, and rather than going through, and I'm because at this point I want to really develop my own voice. I found that to be making it more difficult for me to hear my own voice. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's not like I would never listen to anybody. It's just, there's this fine line between, you're kind of like getting to this place where you're starting to learn about what you want and what you want to do. And you're still a little unsure of yourself. And if you get too much advice and you keep getting advice, you never really can come onto your own. I don't know if this makes much sense. You could do that with anything in life. I mean, if someone like your mother or your relatives or people in your life are strong and like, well, where you should live or how you should live or what you should do with your life, and you're always listening to them, you never really feel like you're doing your thing. You're doing what else wants you to do. And that sounds like I'm being really selfish, but that can happen in life, but that can also happen in your people as well, or anything you do. And there's this balance, as I said, between listening to good but then also learning to, you know, kind of make some decisions on your own and feel good about your decisions and be clear in your own voice. But it's really hard sometimes to be, especially when somebody you really respect or care about, you know, has a real strong opinion one way or the other, you know.
Yeah, you know, when I in my 50s, I went back to graduate school to get a graduate degree just because I wanted to jumpstart myself into a different direction. And I wanted to really get some good core information. My kids were off in college, so I wanted to be really busy. And I'll never forget this one professor who was evaluating my work. It was a one-on-one conversation. It wasn't in front of the class. And he said to me about one of my pieces, and I was trying to go off into an abstraction. I was graphic design, realistic. I'm going off to this abstraction. And I was really excited about what I was doing. And he said, well, this looks a little bit like sample art to me. And I'm like, I had no idea what that meant. What is sample art, right? Well, I learned that it's like the art that you see in like the department stores or whatever, blah, 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 blah. I mean, talk about the biggest offensive thing you could say to somebody who's really working hard to be original. And so I was devastated at the time, and I was so excited about what I was working on, and I worked so hard. And I learned down the road, I mean, I really processed that for a long time because I thought, oh. And first of all, this guy was about my age, right? I've learned since then how old he is. He's like a year or two different from me. I was the oldest one in the class, right? And there's another gal who was about my age, but very much she was not really an artist. She was a teacher, lovely gal, loved her, but not really an artist, more of a crafts person. And he had stereotyped me to no end. And I didn't get it at the time. After the fact, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy just totally stereotyped me. And I finally came to terms with it, and I let it go. And I've since followed him and realized that I didn't have to take him that seriously. But boy, oh boy, at the time, that critique was so hard on me, and it just broke me down. notches. And didn't stop me from working. I thought, no, that's not who I am. I'm not going to be that person. But boy, oh boy, that one person just threw this at me. It was like a brick wall.
Did he stereotype you as? He thought you were a crafter?
As an older lady, not cool and jiving with the other kids, right?
Oh, age
And
sexism.
like a housewifey type gal who's coming out and making like little cottontail bunnies out of, whatever. I don't know what he thought. And I had really thought I approved. And you know what? The first day I walked into the program, he was there. And I immediately thought, oh boy, I'm doomed. Because here's this other lady who was definitely the crafty little great teacher gal. Loved her. She was one of the loveliest people I knew. And I thought, oh, I'm doomed. And you know what? It came to be true. And it was so hard because...
Did that make you really mad? Because when people try to put me down, I get pissed.
I was so mad. And I thought, I contained myself. I did not. But yeah, it was so hard. I just sat there frozen thinking, don't say what you want to say here now, right? But such a jerk. And yet some of the pieces I did, in fact, I just reworked one of the pieces I did that year. And I finally just put it in our studio. I love it. It. I'm like, too bad. I love this piece. But boy, oh boy, that one person you want to respect, and they come out and it was like, oh, it was so hard. It was so hard. But it was totally time. And I've come to terms with that now. I get that. But boy, oh boy, you just never know. But he was so full of himself. I mean, now that I've learned more about him, I thought, no, I should not have taken, at the time I had to, he was going to give me the darn grade, But boy, oh boy, it was so hard. I was just so devastated. But they don't take you seriously. It was so hard.
I've heard other artists say,
and I've gotten over it, but I had to get tough. So you don't know, and even with the like the plein air things where they're doing the critiques, you don't know where these people are coming from, what they're doing, where they're from, what they're...
I've actually gotten bad, when I first started doing plein air, I got bad advice at these events. I got terrible advice. Well, like for example, you have to match the colors perfectly. And everything has to, and I look now at the award-winning plein air artists, and that is not what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? You have to match the light perfectly. That's not even what the award-winning artists do. They are constructing an idea that they have. They're using the reference is this thing they're looking at, but they lay a few things down and their focus is not on the thing out there. The focus is on what they're making in front of themselves, and how they're arranging things. That's where the power of their painting, comes from.
Judith, I think about the guy who you had come in to talk, it was in the fall, who did the plein air, but it was somewhat abstracted.
I think that was Brian Sindler.
Yes. And, he had the confidence to do what he wanted to do, what he knew was right. He wasn't following the rules. I love that. So it was this kind of this cross between realism and abstraction, and he knew how to make it work. That's hard to do, but he was doing it. He was not following the rules. He was following what he knew was right.
Hi. Okay. You know what? I forgot to tell you to take my free quiz. What is your number one painting limitation? Now, it's absolutely free. You can learn about what might be your number one painting limitation. I will review your quiz results and provide you with your own personal quiz results for free. Just click on the link below to take this 2 to 3 minute quiz, and your results will be delivered to you along with some tips on how you might overcome your limitations. I think you'll really like it. It's kind of a fun quiz. So anyway, Judith Reidy here from the Creative Zone.